What you see is a what we call a window of transparency. Inside the window, everything is clear. Outside, the world is blurry. And we feel that is a very strong way to actually depict what's happening, not just in the retail industry, but across a number of different industries. There's a need for data transparency. When we talk specifically about retail, there's a need because you, me as consumers, we are much more demanding than we have ever been. We want to know about the products that we buy. Where did they come from? How were they transported? What went into producing them? And so on and so forth. So there's a huge demand on retailers today to provide that data transparency. But that's not the only thing. When we are talking to retailers globally, as we do frequently, we see a few different trends happening right now. It's spanning everything from what you see in the top of the screen here, onboarding products effectively and consistently, down to developing unique and differentiated brands and services. What I'll zoom in on right now is, of course, in light of the conference here, what can retailers do to ensure that customers, they return by excelling at their omnichannel operations. Just a few statistics, and these are global data. What we see is that 62% of consumers, they report a failed or a late delivery within the past year. At the same time, 45% of retailers, they admit that they don't have the ability to fully identify customers across the various shopping channels. And that is, of course, a huge challenge for all of us that are working with retail, in that we need to create a much better customer experience than that. Couple of other stats here is that 98% of retail marketers, they feel that personalization is important. At the same time, less than 30% of consumers think that retailers are getting personalization right. So again, I think a huge opportunity to do things differently. And I would offer that, I think, as Kasper also mentioned at an earlier point today, data is really central to making the personalization happen, making sure that we as consumers have a smooth experience across the various channels. Couple of key findings from Impact's Omnichannel study, which I found particularly interesting, maybe a little bit biased based on where I'm coming from. But the fact that we see a lot of retailers struggling with old IT systems is obviously something that needs to be taken action on. Old IT systems, they are an impediment for creating a user experience, a consumer experience, the way we want it today, the way you and I are demanding things when we are shopping online. So while omnichannel is the maturity is generally low, I think there's an opportunity here for retailers to invest in a new IT architecture to support a better experience. And I think that is a key element in driving up the experience here and driving up the results. At the same time, the second observation from the study is that when you master data, you master omnichannel. And quite frankly, we couldn't have said it better ourselves, so really pleased to see that this is coming out of the study. There's a lot to do, and I think at least if you think about your own experiences shopping online and so on, one thing is that you eventually get the goods that you buy in your hands, but up until then, everything is just data. Everything from the interaction with the channel, everything from the types of information that you are being given until you actually receive what you have bought. It's just data. And that means data is crucial in order to provide a good experience. When we talk to retailers globally, we see that they are sort of on what we have called a rocky road, and that's because they are struggling with a number of strategic objectives. Again, on the one hand, they want to onboard products correctly and quickly. There's a lot of them. It needs to be correct information, or you and I as consumers are not necessarily overly forgiving if the data is not correct. We need to deliver exceptional and personalized shopping experiences. They want to adapt to fluctuating consumer needs and demands. and they need to gain full visibility into the business compliance from the products delivered. Again, as a retailer, whatever's on your shelf, be it physical or virtual, you're responsible for that in the first place, in the eyes of the consumer. So you need to make sure that what's on your shelf is represented in the right way. And then finally, efficiently create new products that drive better margins. That's in particular true when we talk about private labels and so on and so forth. What we think retailers can do in terms of creating a better tomorrow is to work with their data and create this transparency. It's about working with what we call master data management, which is fundamentally about three things. It's about streamlining your data sharing across people and systems and departments. It's about creating a single version of the truth across the same domains so that we don't have to discuss all the time who has the right piece of information. And then finally, it's about improving agility, innovation speed, operational efficiency, and so on and so forth. How do we do that? Well, we work with master data, and there are four sort of key components driving the challenges that we see with master data today. First of all, there's the technology and the platform proliferation. We see a huge growth in the amount of data, but also in the amount of systems being used, systems that are not always interconnected, and that creates challenges. We see data complexity. Again, just the sheer volume of data is getting harder and harder to handle, but also the types of data. So we have a lot of sentiment data from Omnichannels and so on that's unstructured and not necessarily that easy to deal with. We have a decentralized data sharing and usage. We have more and more people that require data to do their job. We have more and more people who have the opportunity to go and edit into data, and that means that we create inconsistencies or easily create inconsistencies in the data that we work with. And then finally, as a chapter of its own, mergers and acquisitions. Every time a company is absorbed by another one, you have to align around customers, suppliers, locations, and whatever have you. Again, not a small task and not something that you always think about when you think about acquiring new capabilities or new customers. The way we work with our customers is we work around what we call a digital business hub. On the one side, on your left-hand side there, you have all the various what we call data domains. That's the product, the customer, various assets, location, suppliers, and so on. And those we need to have a full and complete overview of so that we can make data ready for the various systems that you use, be it your point of sale, be it your e-commerce, and whatever have you. And what's in particular important here is not only to focus on one domain at a time, just customers or suppliers and so on. You really need to have a full view across all of these domains. That's why we are talking about multi-domain master data management as a key important factor here. That was enough about me selling what we do. Let me give you a few examples about how we create value for the companies that we work with. Our typical starting point is along one of these 7 parameters here. It can be about supercharging a digital transformation that's already taking place. It can be about increasing business agility. It can be about a number of different things. But if we look at some of the ones that you may know a little bit, somebody like a Peak Performance, that's a company that we have worked with where they have a quite complex seasonal product life cycle with everything from summer and golf clothes and apparel and whatever have you to things that are maybe more in the winter outdoors things. And they have to handle that. And they have to do that with a uniform data quality and a uniform brand across all the various channels that they use. And they had a challenge in terms of reducing their dependencies on a number of internal systems to create this single source of truth. What we did with them was we, through our system, helped them create a handle on the 300,000 products that they have. That includes 300,000 different product descriptions, different photos, various designs, and so on. And not only those 300,000 products, but actually in 7 different languages. So quite a complex situation there. In terms of the impact that we have managed to create for peak performance is that they now have control of the versioning of these seasonal collections, and they have reduced the production time in terms of the catalogs from weeks to days, and they continue to work effectively across a number of different channels. So I saw in Kasper's presentation that they may not have been the ones that are the leaders right now, but we certainly think from a data point of view, they're doing the right things and working towards becoming omnichannel champions. Another company from overseas is Caroline's Treasures. Don't know if you know them, but if you look in the lower right-hand corner there, you see a mat in the kitchen. Caroline's Treasures, they are specialized in everything that you can dream of that has animals on it. Be it rugs, be it cups, be it pictures, whatever you could decide for your home where you want to have an animal picture on it. So one of their challenges was timely delivery of product data. That was due to a lot of manual processing and, again, this ever-increasing amount of data. And they also had a challenge in terms of working with many, many different retailers, additional retailers besides themselves, that had different product taxonomies and required different ways of providing category attributes and so on and so forth. So they had challenges. They found it to be really hard for them to upscale their business. So what we help them with is what we call product data syndication, PDS, which allows them to actually set up to 2,400 items on, say, Amazon Vendor Central in just about 15 minutes. And that, for them, eliminates a lot of manual data handling, a lot of manual data entry, and that in itself reduces error rates and so on and so forth. So what it means is that they're seeing a time savings of over 90%, which is quite significant, of course, and it has also contributed quite heavily to an increase in their sales. So those were just a couple of examples. We work, as I mentioned, with a number of retailers around the world, and we do that and have done that for many years, and would love to, of course, also engage with any of you who have a desire to discuss some of these things. Just a little bit of bragging. We do, as I mentioned, work with a lot. Emil was kind enough to mention a couple, but as you can see, it's not something we, despite being a Danish-rooted company, we are working globally with some of the biggest names around the world. With that, I'll say thank you.